So my name's Laura, and I've had the title community in my business title for the last 15 years. And while the words around it have changed, it's been community manager, community growth, community expansion, community development. The thing that stayed the same is the fact that people really don't know what the hell I do. They say, all right, community. The problem is community has a different, it evokes something different for everybody, right? Let me give you an example. In 2007, I'd hit the dating milestone with my boyfriend, now husband, to be included in his family's annual Christmas letter. This is a big deal. So we receive it and we start reading. Son Jonathan has recently graduated law school with honors, blah, blah, blah. Girlfriend Laura continues to find success as head of marketing for the internet. I mean, you're welcome. I feel like I've done a pretty good job at this task. But the reality is, in my 15 years, I've never seen community take more of a front and center role than it is right now. Everywhere I click, I see the word community being used to galvanize, to win hearts and minds, to make people feel a sense of belonging, to make people feel like they have found their people in their corner of the internet. To say, yes, you belong here because we are the software, we are the service, we are the system, we are the platform for you because we share your like interests. We share your niche desires at night. We can do it for you. Why is this rallying cry so popular right now? It's because searching for authenticity, customers are seeking micro-communities. They are moving away from traditional social feeds. If they're not leaving the platforms completely, they are moving into smaller micro-communities. This is just, you see how people use hashtags now, right? They're trying to cut out the noise of the main social feeds. What I'm saying to you right now is that your customers, your clients, are seeking authenticity. They want to find like-minded people. They want to find a brand that gives them personalized engagement. So what's a brand to do? Double down, of course, right? Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky has been very public about his passion for community and how he wants to keep community at the core of what Airbnb does. In fact, he has recently changed his business title from CEO to CEO and head of community. He has been penning open letters to his community about how community is at the core of what they do. It's the only way Airbnb can move into the next century as a business. He said, I need to be held accountable by my community. I cannot be responsible for the business at Airbnb and not responsible for the community at Airbnb. They go hand in hand. But not to be outdone, Facebook recently changed their mission statement. What used to be to make the world more open and connected has now been changed to build communities and bring people closer together. Mark Zuckerberg has also been penning pretty epic missions about building global communities and how everything they do in their product now is going to be focused on putting community first. And for those of you in the back that can't read this, this is not a hyperbole, these are epic missives. That says reading time, 27 minutes. 27 minutes on community. Now, all this tracks, right? You're like, okay, cool, yeah, people are talking about community, Laura, that's great. But what this doesn't do is go to what my talk promised today, which is demystify the term community and prove that it's not just a fuzzy buzzword. My entire life, the last 15 years, right, community is all about feelings, and feelings can't be quantified, right? I'm at a growth conference. I think that my experience tells a different story. So what I'm hoping to leave you all with today is a good understanding of what a community-driven growth model looks like and how it's done in terms of the tactics and the motivations. So, before I was Laura at Duolingo, I was Laura at Yelp. This photo was taken from an actual camera. This photo was taken before iPhones existed. Oh, this photo was taken when I was the head of marketing for the internet. This is way, way back when. But what I actually did at Yelp was help craft the original community growth playbook. Then I moved abroad to expand Yelp internationally, market by market, deploying our community strategy. And what we learned at Yelp is that we could win if we spent all of our energy identifying a very small group of fanatic reviewers. We thought about it like a bullseye. We paid very little attention to people in the outer rings. People that read the reviews, we don't care about you. People that are subscribed to our email marketing, sorry, Dan, we don't care about you. We only care about the people at the very center of the bullseye, and we laser focused on them because we knew they were driving our value. Community professionals will know this as the 1-9-90 model, right? The idea that a very small percent at the top create content that's then consumed by the masses. If this is brand new to you, one cool element of this, don't worry, it'll come back. One cool element of this is that it's the reverse of the marketing funnel. Marketers are concerned about the total addressable market. Community marketers are concerned about the one. So again, back to this model. This only works if you deploy the right motivations to the people at the very, very top, right? This is generally a blend of extrinsic motivations. I'm going to summon Dan Pink now. Things like carrots and sticks, things like leaderboard and swag, and deploy the intrinsic motivators like autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Yelp structured its site to motivate people to write reviews and get praise and attention for them. We created chances for them to brag to all their friends by specifically designing micro-communities that felt like it was very exclusive and it was very private. And then we got these micro-communities to meet in their local geographies offline. So they actually built real relationships, which then made them want to get back online and prove their worthiness and write more reviews so that they could impress all their friends. This system is the entire backbone of what powers Yelp. So the marketing at Yelp focuses on the people that are the really possessed fanatic reviewers that are writing all the reviews that are now being consumed by hundreds of, who's used Yelp in the last year, right? Like, people are using this and they're not even focused on you. Let me give you a different example. I summoned Dan Pink earlier. He gives a TED Talk about the puzzle of motivation, and what he says is this. Which model would you bet on if you were going to bring an offline encyclopedia online? Would you bet on model A? We are going to put millions of dollars of funding behind this project. We are going to pay experts to create content. They will be incentivized monetarily to make sure that the content is up to date, to make sure that it's valid, to make sure that these are cutting edge articles. Then we are going to get one of the largest tech companies of the day to market this. Huge marketing budget, okay? Option A. Option B, we want to bring an encyclopedia online. Let's just open a website and have people contribute content. We're not going to check their credentials at all. We're not going to pay them. We're not going to market this at all. We're just going to trust the system to self-regulate. And people are going to do it because they want to. They're going to figure it out. Dan Pink says there is not a single sober economist in the world that 20 years ago would have bet on Wikipedia to beat Encarta. And yet it did. 200,000 people are contributing articles on Wikipedia. They have created 43 million pages of content that is now consumed by 500 million unique people a month. This is the community growth engine. This is turning community from a fuzzy buzzword into something that's quantifiable. The reason you're hearing the word community every day is because community-driven strategies fuel growth. Executives at high-level companies are realizing this. They would not be changing their mission statements. They would not be changing their job titles if it was the other way around. So Yelp did this. Wikipedia did this. Let me tell you a little bit about how Duolingo is doing this. The key here is that I think that high-level executives are understanding this concept of community, but when I talk to businesses, they still don't quite know where community fits. They're still a little bit, mystical about the feelings and how this can't be quantified. And so often I talk to people who will tell me, yeah, we have a community department. We put them under marketing. They support the marketing organization, or they answer peer-to-peer support on social media. The only way for your community to be leveraged and give the most value is if you set it up as a high-level strategy that can impact business-wide goals, right? Again, this is how the companies I just mentioned saw success. Before the founder of Duolingo created Duolingo, he created a product called CAPTCHA, okay? You've probably filled out these annoying squiggly lines to prove you're not a robot, I'm assuming, right? So it turns out about 200 million people submit a CAPTCHA every day, okay? It takes about 10 seconds of human effort. And he thought, wow, that's pretty cool. But how can I get these 10 seconds of human effort to impact humanity? How can I do something good? So what he did was he created something called reCAPTCHA. Now what's happening as you are filling out these squiggly lines is you are helping digitize out-of-print books. Let me explain. There's a lot of businesses right now that want to bring books, just like we wanted to bring encyclopedia online, we want to bring books online. We want to make them more accessible, we want to save books that are going out of print. Now, you can just imagine, a copy machine, putting it up and having a computer do its magic AI and try and read the word. It can read most of the words, but there are some words it can't. Now, those words go into the squiggly little lines. So you are filling out squiggly lines, and when hundreds of thousands of people do that, it can be statistically significant, and they can put it into a book. Now a book is digitized, right? That's pretty magical. So when he started Duolingo, he really understood the power of crowdsourcing. Now, if you don't know what Duolingo is, quick fun facts, world's most popular way to learn a language. We have 300 million total users, and all of our language learning content is completely free. We're known for our fun, bite-sized lessons that feel a lot more like playing a game than learning a language, but also for our effectiveness. Studies have shown that 34 hours of Duolingo are equivalent to a college semester language course. We make money, because everyone asks, through serving ads and through a subscription. And we also are known for this emotive little owl. I don't know if anyone's used Duolingo, but he gives you all sorts of feelings if you miss a lesson. A lot of people have seen the push notifications. At Traction conferences in the past, we've talked about all these gamified growth metrics or methods, so I'm going to skip these and just tell you more about how we actually scaled through the community model. When we launched in 2012, we had 4 languages and 4 courses. Today, we offer 90 courses, 36 languages, and we're currently developing 15 new courses and 9 languages as I'm up here speaking. So how did we do this? We opened up our language learning tools to the community. So one of the challenges we faced early on is we developed these 4 courses with internal language experts, right? But even just from these 4 languages, you can create 12 courses. Because as most people, especially where I'm from, will forget, is that not everything is done from English. So if someone requests the language Portuguese, right? And they're an English speaker, and someone requests the language Portuguese and they're a French speaker, that's adding 1 language, but 2 very different courses. So you can imagine how complicated this gets, trying to figure out how on earth we're going to address all of these things. And of course, we're having this first world problem of having people requesting languages every single day. But when we launched it to the community, we realized there are hundreds of, probably thousands of people with specific knowledge that they are willing to contribute to Duolingo. And we have a CEO who happens to understand the unbridled power of crowdsourcing. So about 1.5 years after launching Duolingo, we launched what's called the incubator. And this allowed community access to our course creation tools. Oops, not yet. Psych. Now, one key thing in community motivation is making sure that people understand what's most important. So if you've ever watched a child learn a language, they learn through what's called contextual learning. They are not learning things like grammar structures and like what we took in language courses. They're not learning verb conjugations. They're not learning specific vocabulary. They're learning the patterns of grammar, and then they're inserting words into those patterns. So what was very important to us is when we gave these tools to our volunteers, we wanted to let them develop the courses, but we had to create very strict guidelines on course quality and on teaching methodology. That is where we focused all of our effort. Within these pedagogical boundaries, we gave our volunteers a lot of autonomy, which then leads to these types of sentences. For example, this is teaching a present participle. I'm eating bread and crying on the floor. I'm selling my mother-in-law for €1. What's important in these is the grammatical structure, not the actual words, right? But again, one unintended benefit of this was the internet. People found these sentences and then wanted to share them. And of course, again, because the internet, this got picked up by Twitter. And now 66,000 people get, I quote, linguistic gold provided by Duolingo, served up to them. Right? This was not a growth model that we anticipated when we launched these community tools. It was a benefit. One thing that did come true that we had hoped for is the ability to address smaller indigenous and endangered languages. Our mission is to bring free education to the world, but to even attack a smidge of this mission, we need to address the biggest, most spoken languages. This does not leave a lot of room for smaller indigenous endangered languages. But we have a community. We are then able to work with Navajo, Hawaiian, Welsh, Irish, and here's what these actual community teams look like. In the upper right corner for you, in the middle, not to just extend any stereotypes, but that is the president of Ireland. And he is meeting with our Irish course team to celebrate their preservation of the language because, fun fact, there are more people learning Irish on Duolingo than there are native speakers of Irish. So here's what my point about this community-driven model, right? We were only able to address these courses because we allowed the community access. We as a company do not have the time, do not have the resources, it's not scalable to put effort toward these courses. So where in your businesses are you not addressing purpose-driven opportunities that the community could grow for you? And finally, one major key of our community model not only was creating content, not only was the purpose-driven opportunities, but was to improve quality constantly. Again, 90 courses is not something that in-house we would be able to maintain. However, there are teams of people who are very eager when they receive a report from a user. They can look at the report, they can assess whether or not that makes sense, and they can add that to the course. Or they can build a whole new level of the course. Or they can talk to us internally and learn about the recent techniques we've learned about teaching, build a brand new course, and A/B test it against their first course. This happens every day. This is only through the power of the community. And this also then enables the wider community, not the volunteers, but people just engaging with the content to participate. We're bringing them into the community ecosystem by saying, tell us where our course is wrong. Go into the software and discuss if you got a sentence wrong. Maybe you need to learn the difference between Sarah and a star. You can talk about that with actual community members. Or you can just go to a forum and talk about how this word in French is pronounced the exact same way. I think what's really important here is that people know they have the power of the world's largest language learning community one click away. So again, not only have we used community to expand our content, but we've also outsourced peer-to-peer support, and we've also outsourced quality assurance. These are things that we would not be able to scale without enabling community people. This is how we turn community from something fuzzy into something that's actually quantifiable. And where are you doing this? Where could you empower and connect your users to help each other? So, I've given you the tactics of how we've scaled Duolingo's courses, right? But why stop there? About 2 years ago, we thought, all right, this is great. We enable people to create courses, we empower the greater community to engage with it, and then that serves 300 million users. But then what? Once you complete your course on Duolingo, why are we letting you go? Why aren't we keeping you in our community ecosystem, right? People are learning a language to speak it. And then you leave your platform and you go and you find a different platform to find other people to speak with. No, that doesn't make any sense. So it's threefold, right? Language is inherently social. People are learning languages to speak it. And we don't want people to leave our site. We want to keep people engaged. We've worked really hard to nurture them. So about 2 years ago, we decided to try Duolingo events, and of course, spoiler alert, we decided to use a community-based growth model, okay? Here's how that looked. The first 6 months, the first 3 months really, I just spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the hell I was doing, right? And then at about September, I started putting the community model to work. I started inserting humans into being able to volunteer as hosts, okay? So the first 6 months, I was pretty proud of myself. I had 111 events that were happening a month. Here's what happened the first year. Here's what happened in the first 2 years. Right now, actually, we don't even measure events per month anymore. We measure them per week. Here's what that looks like. So we're actively, this last week, we had 600 events a week happening in 118 countries, happening in 34 languages, and happening in something like 850 cities around the world, right? Here's how the event volume looks per region. This is not unexpected. Most people are learning in Europe and North America. And here's what these events actually look like. Clicker, work for me. Whoops. So again, I think one of the key, the best community professionals in the world understand the need in any organization to help connect people that work for the company to the actual people their product impacts. So that's just getting off my soapbox. It's important to remember the humans are involved in all the growth charts. They have emotions, they have feelings, they have memories. Off the soapbox. Okay, so these are the humans that it's actually impacting. And whenever I show these slides and these growth models, people are like, cool, Laura, but how? How did you do that? Here's the answer, guys. You guys are here at a growth conference. You're all professionals. You know exactly how I did it. You want me to stand up here and tell you that I've struck gold, I've found some sort of amazing way. No. This is not how virality works, right? We heard a lot about this earlier in the day. What happens is you start with a handful of people, and you do a bunch of crap that doesn't scale, and then you do it some more, and then you figure out what works, and then you do it incrementally, right? So I didn't do anything that you guys don't know. My first step was to say, all right, start small, start now, just start. I literally emailed 100 people in Seattle, which is where I'm based, and I said, hey, I work for Duolingo. I think it'd be really cool to meet and speak in Spanish at a bar. Who wants to come? Right? My goal during this phase of testing was just to figure out what the pain points were. I was about to jam hundreds of thousands of volunteers potentially into this model. I better as heck know where the pain is, right? The second step was to test things that don't scale. So the goal in this phase was all about figuring out, just validating, figuring out feedback. So I set up a Google form. I was emailing everybody that would come. I would stay after the events and figure out, why did you come? What did you want? What did you expect? I tried maybe 20 different types of event styles. I partnered with restaurants. I brought in tutors. I would do exchanges with a bunch of native speakers of one language and a bunch of native speakers in another language, right? I was just testing everything that I could. And then I got this group of hosts together that were also willing to test with me. And then the last step, this is one of my favorite graphics in the presentation, right? The concept here is that you're just trying to get your airplane off the ground. You're not trying to figure out your in-flight entertainment options, okay? If you are solving a real problem, you don't need fancy shit. All you need is a web page and a Google form, and you can figure out if you're solving a real problem or not. Save your developer's time, save your marketing budget, and just test it and figure out if it works. Get your airplane in the air. The other thing to do is to make sure that you're only going for the next level, right? At one event, I wasn't trying to optimize for 10 events. At 10 events, I was not trying to optimize for 1,000 events. I was only trying to optimize exactly what I needed in the moment to get this thing off the ground. But here's the real secret. It's not fancy product optimizations. It's not gamified reward tactics that led to any of those graphs that you just saw. It's intrinsically motivating humans who were actively seeking authentic micro-communities. That's what a community-driven growth model is all about. Because behind every single event is a human, okay? They're generally the person that's awkwardly trying to do the selfie of their group. I showed this model earlier, and now you have a face to it. One of the biggest problems of people that I talk to is that they're spending all their time optimizing for these people down here, when it's these people up here that are driving all your growth. Go to the center of your bullseye here. I'm not trying to build product solutions for the millions of people that are going to use my product. I'm trying to build intrinsic motivators to get PJ in Venezuela and Lei in Nigeria to feel confident that what they're doing matters and that they can hold events 3, 4, 10 times a month. That is where you need to be spending your effort. So I summoned a couple other Dan Pink examples earlier, but I just want to shout out to other behavioral economists that are important in my life. BJ Fogg, love you. Carol Dweck, Malcolm Gladwell to an extent. You should definitely understand some of the concepts in his books, especially Tipping Point. Dan O'Reilly, Cost of Social Norms. Just shout outs to some people that are important. But Dan Pink describes intrinsic motivators as autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And he says these are the 3 things that drive engagement, okay? And the point that I'm making here is that intrinsic motivation is what fuels community growth, and community growth is what fuels all of these products' success. So autonomy. What we did for our event hosts was that we allowed them to create whatever events they wanted. We gave them guidelines, but we said, you know what? Within these guidelines, you are able to do whatever you want. Hold an event that you would like to go to, okay? Mastery. With our event hosts, we also gave them a place on Slack to create their own community. They get to talk and celebrate their wins. They get to say, crap, no one showed up tonight, what's wrong? They get to feel like they can better themselves. And also, as like a bonus level, they get to watch people master a language at all of their events. And in some cases, they get to master the language themselves. And purpose. I'll read this quote. This was something on Slack that came through. He said, sorry, no pictures. I need to get better at that. We just hosted our 30th Duolingo event since November. Our little group has also inspired the local theater to start showing movies in Spanish, as well as a local organization to host the town's first ever Dia de los Muertos celebration. Amazing things happening in Emporia, Kansas, thanks to the power of language learning, right? Autonomy and mastery and purpose are what are driving these event hosts to hold these events, right? Identifying and invoking the key motivations is really what I want to impart on you today. This is so essential in the community growth model. Let's look at this through the lens of our course contributors. They had the autonomy to be able to create the sentences within the pedagogical boundaries, right? This is why I'm selling my mother-in-law for €1. They had the mastery to be able to continually improve and advance their courses. And they had the purpose to be able to launch languages on a platform that's used by millions that Duolingo never would have been able to address themselves. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose are the core elements of intrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation is the core element of what drives community-driven growth. So let me finish with a story about purpose. I'm sure many of you in this room could very quickly recite your company's business mission statement. Ours is to bring free language education to the world. I was going to do Facebook's. No, not that one. To bring free language education to the world, right? And so many people so often will write to us, thousands of people, and they'll say, here's what language means to me. Here's why your product is so important. But one time someone wrote to us. It was actually an event host in Istanbul, Turkey. And he said, Laura, I've just held an event for Turkish learners in Istanbul. And 2 of the people who came were refugees, one from Iraq and one from Syria. And they came to Turkey to find a more peaceful place to live. But they came to my event to learn the language of their new home. He said, I never thought when I volunteered for this that this would be so moving. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And obviously, this moved us as well because this drove a purpose for him, but it also drives the purpose of why we do what we do. So of course, we sent a crew to go and meet these people.
When you learn a language, you are not talking to a book, you are talking to people, like flesh and blood. Around you.
For my kids, it's education.
You can survive with languages.
I must learn Turkish.
I am 15 years old, from Syria and Damascus.
You can't imagine it. It's like... oh.
We really didn't know what we would find when we decided to go on this journey.
Welcome home.
Community at Duolingo is not just a fuzzy buzzword. It is the mega highway that connects what we do, why we do it, and who we do it for. The reason that you're hearing community everywhere right now is that high-level executives at companies that you all love and admire understand that community-driven strategies drive growth. They are not banking they are banking their mission statements and their job titles on this exact point. And the last point that I'm going to make is that harnessing the power of community not only fuels growth, it advances authenticity. People are seeking to connect with brands on a human level. They are looking for people that make them feel something in a world right now that's obsessed with data and metrics and analytics and charts. Remember that there is a human behind every single one of those data points. And the best thing that you can do is try and embrace the duality between what everyone is obsessed with, which is the quantitative, and also make sure that you're adding in the qualitative elements. Let me finish with these 4 questions for you. Who is in your micro-community? What is the mission-aligned opportunity that you can provide them with? How can you empower them to support your business and support one another? And what is the intrinsic why? Thanks so much.
I need some traction. You need some traction. Let's get some traction.